I didn't even realize I had brought my two children into a haunted house. Nobody had told us about the troubled past of Bisham Manor. Nothing about seeing hacked-up ghosts watching you, feeling chilly places, or hearing strange noises. According to my realtor, it was all a technicality, the rule of emotional defect. He didn't have to tell us anything about the history of the house as long as I didn't inquire. Naturally, it was too late now. With all the money I had left over after my husband Jesse was killed, I had already purchased the house just a few months ago. Jesse was killed while he was away from us and out of town on business. He was fatally murdered while alone in a motel room in Atlanta. His face had been so badly damaged that the skin had nearly torn off, resembling a cheap mask. There was no motivation, and nothing was taken. A haphazard massacre. I was left in ruins and crying. The children were too. The Christensen family, however, had to endure. I couldn't disappoint us. Jesse was a capable leader from the beginning. Tall, muscular, and attractive, his silky brown complexion served as the ideal backdrop for those brilliant eyes and beaming smile. Even now, when I sleep down at night, I can still giggle and visualize his dimples. He was the most optimistic of the two of us. Furthermore, my Jesse deserved better than what transpired. I made the decision to relocate the children to Bisham Manor. The estate was situated in Jesse's hometown of LaGrange, Georgia, and was his dream house. He and I had been enjoying the American dream in Columbus, which was about 40 miles away. I am a professional therapist, and Jesse is the general manager at St. Francis Hospital. The children were happy about the change. However, I was unable to trust anyone following Jesse's passing. I stayed in Bisham all my life. I also made sure that neither Jason nor Kate left. I had lost my soul in the last few months. Jesse's murder hit me like a sickness. I stopped my job and spent all of my time at home. I had to do it, not because I wanted to. I gave over my interests to the melancholy. I stopped watching Netflix and football. Not even reading could comfort me. Once a loving wife, Megan Christensen was now a stoic single mother. The melancholy had also made me appear worse. I used to be really hot, but I was still pretty. My smile was the same as Jesse's, not to add dark hair that is long and flowing, hazel eyes. I also took care to stay tidy. I had an obsession with taking showers, taking care of my skin, and maintaining the best possible hair. At least I was charming, despite my cynicism. I never intended to offend or denigrate anyone with my dry sense of humor. But after Jesse's death, everything changed. The reality is that I used to be able to hide my middle age or stress with my appearance. However, anguish could not be concealed. I put on weight. My hair developed into a perpetual mess of frizz and knots. Naturally, I took fewer showers. Talons replaced my fingernails. My beautiful features had degenerated into a gothic picture instead of a regal portrait. But my children got me through it all. We took refuge in Bisham Manor together. I made dinner every night and homeschooled them. We only left this castle to do grocery shopping. However, we managed to survive. Kate was 9 and Jason was 10. They are both adorable and intelligent. They retained their youthful radiance even after Jesse passed away. Jason was more like me. He kept to himself. Not slim, not fat, a pleasant smile to accompany his complex self-reflection. Kate resembled Jesse more. Sharp, bright, and incredibly curious. Besides, it's tall. She had a radiant beauty on her face. Her optimism is just remarkable. I did my best to take care of them, like a hypervigilant mother on steroids. To be honest, the children looked after me. I didn't give up hope because of their excitement and love. In this dark, dark house, they were the lighthouse. Here, at Bisham, we sensed no evil, despite all the tales. On a spacious 4-acre land stood the 3-story LaGrange mansion. The brick home is nearly a century old. The furnishings looked like discarded items from antique stores, and the lighting wasn't the best. However, we had plenty of space. All 3 of us could share the palace that was the manor. I gave the children free rein to furnish their bedrooms as they saw fit. I even have a home office where I could work from home or just write. In actuality, the office was larger than my room. When I was ready to return to mindless entertainment, I had shelves of paperbacks waiting for me to touch them. In addition, there is a large circular window that overlooks the kilometers of farmland and the rural roads. The yellow walls of the house radiated a warm welcome to us. The brick hearth is ideal for these warm winter evenings. Additionally, despite living 10 miles outside of town, there were no issues with the internet or TV. We always felt secure because our entire property was surrounded by a security gate, even within a home that is said to be haunted. However, I secretly questioned whether I ought to have gotten more information about Bisham's reputation from the locals and our realtor. I simply did not want the worry to be ingrained in my thoughts. Better the little I knew. Furthermore, the house was already sufficiently cool without the addition of frequent chills. Furthermore, I really didn't want any of these legends to be shared with Jason or Kate. However, a bunch ambushed our utopia in February. A crew of filmmakers stopped just outside our front gate in an army of vans and fast automobiles. I got a call from Phyllis Burton, a producer. Her gaunt voice explained everything with lucid accuracy. It seems that the previous owners of the house granted permission for this Netflix crew to shoot a movie in our home. The allegations that Bisham was haunted proved to be too strong for Phyllis's team to resist. Of course, I hesitated. In the middle of my children's screams, I gave in to the team on the proviso that they not tell my children about the terrible history of the house. They didn't have to get scared or cynical, at least not this young. I must admit that I was likewise unable to resist the pay. In a short one-week shoot, $500 a day. The majority of the actors and staff had their own trailers outside, and Phyllis assured us that they would also shoot around us. After everything was said and done, I signed the contract. We welcomed these A-list filmmakers to our Bisham, and I suppose the staff and actors got along well enough. In hours, Phyllis went home. I walked to the Bisham. I suppose the staff and actors got along well enough. Not as overpowering as one might anticipate from a Hollywood production. However, this was an extremely low-budget shoot, as Phyllis described it. It was a basic haunted home movie based on her own uninterested description. The cast lacked any very well-known individuals. She even said that they would find a way to get around all the adjustments we had made to Bisham because the premise was so flimsy. In fact, the film had no title at all. Phyllis was in charge of the entire production, like a bossy CEO. She even held more authority than Dan Crawford, the director. Phyllis was constantly dressed in suits. She was a 40-year-old woman who was attractive but worried. Footnote: despite having short brown hair that isn't slightly gray, I could see that the once immaculate face was beginning to show the effects of those restless nights. In addition to being louder, she was far stronger than Dan. Her speech was fierce and full of brutal force. However, it was evident to me that her bossiness stemmed from passion rather than ego. Dan was also no slouch. He truly was a professional. His weight, his love of tight shirts and sunglasses, and his long, oily hair were all the reverse of what I had anticipated. However, I couldn't blame him, because he reacted to Phyllis like a good schoolboy. For the first few days, everything went smoothly. We didn't bother the personnel, and they didn't bother us. Without having to put up with the emphasis being on us, I thought we were living a reality show. Jason, Kate, and I could just live our lives in the background, in my bedroom usually. Our primary sources of entertainment are cereal and cartoons, and I also drank a lot of coffee. The additional furnishings and lighting that the production provided didn't bother me either. The lead actress's terrible yelling was compensated for by the temporary redecorating. Additionally, the place felt cozier with everyone around, less isolation. I had forgotten how pleasant companionship was after spending so much time alone with the kids. We would have dinner with the crew, have coffee first thing in the morning. We became close. Our large gathering resembled a close-knit army. I spoke with Phyllis by the Keurig late one evening. We normally remained up later than everyone else, so it was just her and me during— "How are y'all so fast?" I inquired. "Like y'all move quick, do we?" Phyllis made a joke. "Yeah, y'all all just seem really efficient," Phyllis gave a nod. "Yeah, well," she smiled in a knowing way. "It's not our first time here, actually." I stared at her cheeky smile in astonishment. "What? Really?" "Yeah, we shot a movie here last year," replied Phyllis. "It's the perfect spot for haunted house flicks, you know," I laughed. "Don't put it like that." My shoulder was stroked by Phyllis. Her skeleton, pale touch was unexpectedly comforting. "No, Megan, I truly want to thank you for this. I mean it. We have a great time shooting here." "Ah, it's no problem." Phyllis turned and gestured around the kitchen like a proud architect. The chandelier that appeared to have been stolen from the Titanic and the yellow walls. In addition, there are magnet picture frames of Jesse, the kids, and me all over the refrigerator. So you guys really haven't experienced anything weird here?" Phyllis inquired. I saw her continue to admire the house. "Not really," I said in response. "I just try to stay away from that kind of stuff." I took a drink of coffee to relieve my growing anxiety. Hylas turned to face me, the glow turning her pale blue eyes greater. "But Megan, the past, you cannot disregard it." She halted directly in front of me, her desire brimming with excitement. "This is simply too much. I've sensed it." I looked at her bewilderedly. "What are you saying? Have any of you seen ghosts?" Phyllis nodded, smiling. "Yes. If not, why do you think we keep returning?" I scuffed out a laugh. "Come on." Phyllis sipped casually, in the mood to tell a story. "No, I promise. I've experienced cold areas. Dan claims to have seen a man strolling about with blood all over him." "That's weird, yeah," replied Phyllis. "I hear things from crew members, as though they can hear voices. I was informed that there was blood on the walls." "That's crazy," I cut that short. Knowing how frightened I had grown, Phyllis continued to smile playfully at me. "I understand. It's unfortunate that none of it is ever captured on video." I made a self-assured laugh. "Well, I ain't seen anything." I completed the coffee with my subsequent drink. "I promise." Evidence was only obtained by Phyllis and her group. They were filming in the kitchen the following evening, an eerie ghost scene that became even more unsettling as an invisible force started tearing off the refrigerator magnets. They took off in a systematic pattern, one by one. The magnets formed a long path that dispersed throughout the floor. Some of them displayed pictures of the fictional family from the film, while others were tourist souvenirs. Among them, however, were my family's photographs. Images of me and Jesse with the children. In my office, Dan and Phyllis showed me the video with great excitement. Like we were in a movie theater, we all sat at my computer. All I could feel was terror. I kept it hidden from Jason and Kate, and to be honest, I hoped I hadn't witnessed it myself. Perhaps Phyllis was simply employing her filmmaking skills. However, this garbage appeared real. With actual force, the magnets were removed, and the final pictures to crash down were the ones of my family. "That's crazy," I informed them. "That's really weird. Yeah, we're gonna use it in the final cut." Dan cried out. Phyllis gave him a chilly look. "Shut it, Dan." He raised his hands. "What?" I looked at the computer, disturbed. That photo of Jesse, me, and the children captured my attention. Phyllis informed me a few of the actors said they felt the room get colder. With tears in my eyes, I paid little attention to the rest of her speech. I had no desire to. Not with Jesse's large smile and eyes looking back at me in the picture. The way she stared into the mic. The three of us could fit in the bed. The restroom is just a short distance away. I left the TV and lamps on. All of our framed pictures were standing guard over us, like angels from the shelves. Scooby-Doo proved to be a simple diversion late at night, a simple lullaby to help the children fall asleep. However, I felt like I was wedged between two uncomfortable cushions. I continued to spin and toss. Sleep eluded him. I just got up at last. Stumbled to the bathroom. I came to a halt before the shower. My tired eyes were drawn to the dim lights in the mirror of the medicine cabinet. I pondered how I could look like this and not go to sleep right away. But my thoughts kept returning to Phyllis's ghost stories, or what I seen on camera. Perspiration seeped into my bulky pajamas. Instead of sadness, fear. Another terrible emotion had taken hold of me. There was nowhere else for myself and my children to go. We couldn't flee this house like we could have with Jesse's death, no matter what was inside. I felt a chill creep up my back. I rubbed my arms with my hands. The room had become chilly somehow. I was startled by a faint shriek. The sound that lies between a moan and a voice that begs. The hazy man's voice just ajar. The medicine cabinet creaked open. I could see the shower behind me more clearly now. Additionally, I could see a hand rubbing against the fabric beneath its moving veil. The man's voice became louder yet. Harsher, I shivered as I stood frozen in terror. My gaze remained fixed on the mirror. To my terrified face's reflection, and whatever the devil was in the shower, the man's voice slid toward me like readjusted audio. His painful, slow whisper became understandable. He said, "Megan." I felt reserves of fear. The man's voice was familiar to me. Jesse was at home. Jesse's voice reached a high-pitched scream, a shout of pain. I slammed the cabinet shut in panic. The voice then ceased. The shower curtain froze in place. In the still chill, I stood. I looked into the mirror. Rick silently watched. As I turned to look at him, his open mouth opened and closed, terrified by what he'd seen. The shower curtain slid fully open with a flourish. The room was filled with the piercing scream of the metal slide. "Megan!" exclaimed Jesse. I watched in fear via the mirror. My spouse was standing in the shower. His corpse was the only one I'd ever seen. It was only a moment before I broke down in tears. However, Jesse was present at the time, and his gore is still as graphic and unsettling as ever. His face hung over to the side like a jumbled mask. Beneath the shredded flesh were exposed muscles. Jesse's face was sliced as deeply as a dug trench. His skin was covered in blood, and his boxers and undershirt were torn. He had lifeless, blank eyes. His tongue hung from a pale mouth like a dead dog. His lips were smeared with new black blood. Jesse extended his hand to me. He fought to shout, "Megan." I went into emotional unconsciousness at the sight. My heart was racing. My face started to well up with tears. I turned aside, crying. However, Jesse had left. The shower curtain had returned to its original location, and there was absolute silence again. I was shivering, not from the cold, but from anxiety now. "No," I replied. I rushed up and ripped the curtain open. There was nobody. I looked around the restroom. All I could see, though, was my anxious reflection. I was by myself. I did not want to frighten the children, particularly in light of tales of their spectral father pursuing them home. I dabbed at the tears. I tried my best to pretend to be strong instead of scared, even though I was a terrible actor. "What's wrong, baby? Why do you remain awake?" Jason added, "I saw him too, Mommy," with the calm composure of a therapist 30 years his senior. Astonished, I was unable to speak. All I could do was hold on to his shoulders and retain a protecting hold on him. We lay back down together, and I clung to him more tightly than ever before because of our shared secret. I didn't let go all night long. Shooting was completed by Phyllis's team the next afternoon. I bid everyone farewell, along with the children. We even succeeded in obtaining a few selfies and autographs from Dan, and a couple of the actors' pilot remained with me in the kitchen. Our personal goodbye, jokingly, "Well, I hope we weren't too irritating, Phyllis." It was, "No, y'all were fine," I said. "Just take the ghosts back with you," Phyllis laughed. "I didn't mean to bring them here," I smiled. "It's fine." Phyllis, ever the polished professional, extended her hand to the counter. "Here." She gave me a heavy black folder and an envelope. I put the check in there. I smiled and raised the folder. "And what's this?" Phyllis gave me a shoulder pat. "The script." She winked at me slyly. take pleasure in it. Additionally, I had everyone sign their names. I turned the pages like an inquisitive child. What's it called? Phyllis leaned closer, back in pitch mode. Hiding from Horror, the title page was where I ended up. For me, it was written in a large bold font. Written by Brad Haskell, Hiding from Horror. In October, Phyllis added, "It should be available on Netflix." We bid each other farewell. In case I ever wanted to converse or perhaps travel to Los Angeles, I even acquired Phyllis's phone. Phyllis wanted to keep in contact because she was already considering opening an office in Atlanta. I assumed that she would eventually wish to employ Bisham once more. But I stayed up late in my workplace that night after putting the kids to bed. I had a novel in progress. It was my third time trying. My only companions were a bottle of wine and a lamp. I suppose I'd thought I now had the time. Not to mention a significant impact. After all, until Jesse died, I preferred the horror genre. It was also a pleasant little incentive to have a copy of the script on the desk. I read several pages before stopping for a glass of wine. After I finished the glass, my curiosity overcame me. I looked up whatever detail I could on the Phyllis film on IMDb. I was shocked to see that Hiding from Horror was already available, one that debuted in October 2018 on Netflix. The staff and actors were identical as expected. In addition, my own house, Bisham Manor, was included in all of the promotional images and stills. I investigated more, like a detective. I clicked play after seeing Hiding on Netflix. I looked at other Google results for the movie while it was loading. My short-lived wine euphoria ended horribly. The terror was back. Still, difficult. Hiding from Horror shoot was described in a number of stories. In February 2018, there had been a terrible massacre. The unsolved killings claimed the lives of the majority of the cast and crew. Although police suspected ritualistic killings, the graphic details were not mentioned in any of the stories. Numerous familiar names were among the victims, and it was like a knife to my heart to see Dan Crawford and Phyllis Burton among them. Then Hiding from Horror started playing. And so the band started playing, and Phyllis Burton, the film engulfed my screen and made me shudder with fear. All around me, cold air swirled like a stirring melody. I was unable to stop the movie, not even after realizing that I and the children were the leaders, or when the scene was at Bisham Manor, or when I realized that Jesse's spirit was the main story point, following us here. The four of us had somehow become the main characters in this fucking scary film. I sat there the whole time, a captivated audience. There was the scene with the magnet, the same as what I saw in the restroom. The spirit of Jesse resembled me exactly. His face was a grisly buffet, just how his body had appeared. Even after death, his love for his family remained a motivating factor. The film neared its conclusion. I was running out of time. My fear reached its zenith. I folded my arms in an attempt to stay warm. My home office was shown in the final scene. Everything, even the smallest detail, was precise. Even the script that was on my desk was visible. "No," I replied, despite my terror. I glanced around the room in panic. There were no cameras in sight. There was nothing that could compare to the cinematic experience I had while watching it. I was consumed by the dread. I had tried my best to conceal what had happened to Jesse, just like the movie title. But here I was, confined. I shook in my jammies and faced the computer again. I was in my office there, wearing the same attire, and staring at the computer screen while shivering. Jesse now entered the frame, only in the film. He moved slowly and deliberately. A sloppy puddle of blood followed him. He was holding out his horrible hands to me. Like a frayed red flag, his dangled flesh dangled further from his face. His ghost, for some reason, now appeared more dreadful. Jesse still desired me, though. I was needed by him. I was sitting in my chair, gasping for air. My eyes welled up with tears. I remained a prisoner of the film. I also wouldn't turn around. It's just a movie, Megan, my mind began to tell me. It's just a film. But as soon as I heard footsteps sloshing across the room, the pitiful mantra vanished. Megan, "Don't turn around." My next inside mantra was, "Don't turn around." I was resolved to follow the advice, despite the increasing proximity of those footsteps. Even when I heard Jesse's tremulous cries, "Tomo muñoz sodapinis," his tortured voice begged, "Megan, Megan, don't turn around." I told myself over and over. I was aware that Jesse's voice wasn't coming from the computer screen, but nevertheless, I had him just behind me. My fascination with the paranormal has been for as long as I can remember. Creepypastas, ghost stories, haunted houses, Ouija boards, horror films and books, and so on. I think I've read all of those stories because I loved them, and I have been lurking on the internet since I was a teenager, which is around 15 or 20 years ago, until I came across this stories from national park rangers, possessed villages, haunting campgrounds, stairs in the woods, unbelievable basements. I started reading terrifying stories every night. However, I wouldn't claim that I thought all of this was true. I just thought it was a pleasant way to kill time and get a little chill before bed. Yes, I was just like you guys once, a person who is skeptical. I can recall having a couple experiences that didn't seem completely natural, but I always assumed that my brain was playing tricks on me, right up till my old mirror died. Let's go back to the beginning. In 2006, when I was around 12, my mother gave me a small desk mirror, specifically a double-sided circular mirror. You know the ones. A vanity or makeup device that enlarged the face on one side. Such a mirror. I had been requesting a mirror of my own as I approached adolescence, in order to avoid having to straighten my hair and apply makeup in the restroom. In my angsty middle school and high school years, the place wasn't private enough for the teenage edginess that was beginning to bloom on me because I had 2 younger siblings. Her mother was never wealthy. Her coworkers always gave us used clothing, which had previously been worn out by their older children. My younger sister always ended up wearing my clothing before they were passed down to the youngest. Nevertheless, my mother was able to purchase a brand new mirror for me. It was only a small one though. However, it was novel. I utilized a small rearview mirror I had stolen from my bike when I got it. This was a significant improvement. After expressing my gratitude to her, I placed the mirror on my desk for a bit, but the mirror spoiled their sleeping place, so the cats didn't like it there. I only got it in the morning to do my hair and makeup. Therefore, I kept it on my wall shelf during the day and night. I had previously encountered the unseen powers that govern our universe a few times before, or so I believed, before my mother decided to make my bedroom her eldest daughter's personal space. It served as our home's kitchen. She decorated it with me, got me a wooden desk and a bed bunk with storage underneath, and made it into my bedroom. I used to make a joke about it, saying that my head slept in the oven and my feet slept in the refrigerator. Growing up, whenever I sat at my desk, I would have a nagging sense. Something seemed to be observing me from behind my back. The presence was specifically from my bedroom's corner. I recall not sitting close to that particular location by the entrance when I was a child, and this was our kitchen. I had to be as far away from it as possible. It only got worse after I had my own bedroom. There was a sinister energy emanating from the corner. I was unable to put it into words. It was more of an emotion. This corner felt like the end of the world, that's all I can say. As if someone or something unseen was quietly lurking there, waiting. Occasionally, items I had placed on the wall shelf would fall out of nowhere, to no avail. I would reshuffle the toys, books, and CDs. They would continue to fall off. It was only the small mirror that refused to move. I still have sleep paralysis, but not as frequently as I did as a teenager, and not as much as I did when I lived there. I had severe sleep paralysis when I was still living with Mom. In that same location, I would constantly see apparitions. An odd gnome beside my books on my wall shelf. He appeared to be a wood puppet in the nighttime darkness of my chamber, a distorted version of Pinocchio, a cursed marionette. As I lay there utterly helpless, he refused to speak and only continued to stare at me. I would occasionally hear laughter. On other evenings, a deep, manly voice could be heard in the corner. All night long I was whispering in a language I didn't understand. Though it was clear that it originated there, the more it talked, the more it seemed to be ideas, like it went into my own head. I believed I was going mad those nights. My mother used to tell me that I was overly imaginative. My ancient mirror developed stains and spots as I grew older. But it wasn't dirt. I could have cleaned them if it had been dirt, right? At the age of 18, I left my small rural French childhood home to attend a university in a large city. I moved into my own apartment, an hour's trip from my house, and it became dusty after I went. I didn't feel the need to bring my child with me, because my first apartment had 2 mirrors. I didn't want it with me either. See, the mirror always gave me a strange sense. I believed it to be the root of all of my problems, insomnia and nightmares. In the end, I thought it was how my sleep paralysis demons approached me. It appeared as though this mirror was a doorway to a different dimension. I referred to it as the mirror world. I know it's not very creative. However, it was both technically correct and useful to refer to it that way. I developed a method to seal off the entrance or exit to that mirror universe. I concluded that my brain distorted reality to convince me of horror stories, since I'm a sensible, grounded person. If I had used my mind to summon bad forces, the only defense would have been to visualize a blockage. However, my method was incredibly flimsy and foolish. All I wanted to do was turn the mirror. I didn't see the magnifying side as a gateway to the world of mirrors. Ghosts and demons were prevented from entering my dimension by this side. For them, it was essentially just a window. They could observe but not pass. In order to make the magnifying side of the mirror appear higher, I rotated its circular shape. The normal side had to glance down in this manner. I reasoned that nothing could escape in this manner. Spirits couldn't appear if the mirror door didn't reflect anything because they couldn't see where they were going. And it was successful. Since I began using that method to close the mirror world, I was able to avoid sleep paralysis during my last year at my mom's house. For this reason, when I began my new life as an adult and university student, I did not bring the mirror with me. I wanted to be free and not have to live with the anxiety of constantly looking in the mirror. I was unable to discard it since I couldn't predict what might have happened. Had I done it, perhaps I would have unleashed evil upon the earth. I therefore made the decision to keep the mirror in the room where I grew up. I placed it in the locked position on the top shelf, covered it with a small piece of cloth, and instructed my siblings not to touch it. They swore not to because they understood how uncomfortable that made me feel. After that, I started living my life. I rarely returned home because I was so preoccupied with school, my new job, my friends, going out, meeting people who broke my heart, acquiring a cat of my own, and more. I never remained the night and avoided my reflection when I got home. After all, my mother was, and still is, a hoarder. My bed was hardly reachable, and my bedroom soon turned into a storage unit. I made no attempt to sleep there. Fighting the hoard was pointless because it was living. When I was younger, I made a lot of attempts, but the hoard always returned stronger to devour everything. That's the way things are. I therefore never slept in my childhood room again. But my sister tried to kill herself one night. I will not delve into the specifics. However, when I found out from Mom what had transpired the following day, I was a complete wreck. All of us were. My sister had been taken by ambulance during the night, and my mother was at a loss for what to do. The fact that she was powerless to assist made her feel terrible. We didn't want to cause our younger brother too much stress while he was away at boarding school. I therefore assumed the adult role. I returned home to help my mom. She was a complete mess. At the very least, I assured myself, she would have someone to transport her to the hospital every day from now on and handle groceries and food while I was there. She did it, my sister. She made it through, but she couldn't speak to us since she was too drunk. She did not have to explain to me why she attempted suicide. I just vowed to do everything in my power to help her and was glad she was still alive. I apologized and cried next to her bed, but I'm not sure if she heard me. That day after we returned from visiting my sister in the hospital, I made the decision to take on my bedroom. Having the entire house to myself, I picked out the windows outside my room to read. If I was going to be there forever, I had to have a place of my own. I felt strange as I began to clear my bed of the collected mess. There was a problem. I was unable to identify it. I glanced around. Then it dawned on me. The mirror. The shelf did not have it. The stress of that day, the adrenaline, the worry that I would lose my sister forever. My level of anxiety increased. A severe panic attack was unavoidably seeping inside of me. I hurried over and avoided the stacks of boxes, books, and clothing as I got closer to the shelves, the bedroom's corner. Where had it gone? I have to be aware. Nothing was present, but I had to be aware. Kumbaya, kumbaya, kumbaya. The mirror was gone, other than a single fragment on the ground. It cut me as it slipped through my fingers as I grabbed it up. My thumb was bloodied when I picked it up again. Then I became quite anxious. It was not my own terrified visage that was reflected in the mirror fragment. A shadow was present. A shadow with a smile, vicious eyes, and sharp teeth.